Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's group coaching for the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Today, we are going to be talking about developing systems. So systems are important for all of our businesses, and it's something that it's worth talking about as your business continues, not just as it gets starting, but also as it grows and evolves, and especially as it is built to scale. So I kind of want to set the tone about kind of saying that, you know, systems actually, okay, as I was prepping for tonight, I started thinking about systems in my own business. And then I took a pause and I was like, all right, who out there in the big companies that we all know, who's famous for having great systems? And I was like, I need to like wrap my head around something that's more than just my own business, which by the way, we're going to talk plenty about my business. But I want to kind of start by highlighting just really briefly, like 5 companies that are famous for having great systems and why. Um, and some of these you may have heard of. And if you haven't known that they're famous for their great systems, feel free to put into the chat other companies that come to mind when you think about great systems. So the 5 that I was thinking about, the first one is kind of odd because I don't really eat there that often, but McDonald's was the first one that came to mind because they are famous for standardizing their operational process. And that was how they ensured the consistency and the quality, for lack of a better term, but of the speed and the service and the hamburger or the fries that you're going to get, you know, in America. It is the same that you're going to get when you're in Paris or if you're in Japan. Like they're really famous for their standard operational process and speed and service. So I was like, all right, well, how did they do that? Right. So thinking about McDonald's. Then I started thinking about Amazon. They're famous for their highly efficient logistics that enabled them to change the delivery speed of our expectations of what is like next day delivery is not something that we were used to before, right? But that same day or next day delivery is because of their amazing operations. So thinking about that, getting in that mindset, right? Then I started thinking about Toyota. You guys know I used to do the marketing for Toyota. Um, their production system and even Ford with the way they did their assembly line, that was revolutionary, right? They had a production line system, or Toyota with their they even named it the TPS, the Toyota Production System. This is how they minimized waste and maximized efficiency with the way that their cars were made. And then, Apple, I know they come up all the time for us, but they have such strict quality control to ensure seamless user experience and, consistent high quality products. And then Zappos is one that I think is most known for their customer, the way that they handle their customers, but that's a system too, right? The way that they empower employees and the way that they handle all of their customer service, that is also a different expression of service. So that's kind of where my head was, and that's kind of where I hope your mind is, because we're going to talk plenty about my business, but I think those are some best in class systems and processes that other big global brands um, have been able to implement and scale. So, for the purpose of a small business, or if you're an entrepreneur who's still in that phase of almost being a solopreneur, right? Right now, you need to develop small processes and procedures that are foundational to your business so that you can then grow and scale and maybe eventually be one of those big players in the space. But at this stage, it's about um, increasing your efficiency. It's about not leaving extra money on the table. It's about maximizing the use of your time, and enhancing your client and potentially your small team satisfaction. So let's think about that as we're talking about structure today. and processes. So now, one of the things that a solopreneur has to deal with in the very beginning is that you have a way that you like to do things. And I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs struggle because their customers and themselves, they get used to a certain way of behaving, a certain standard of excellence, and a certain way that things are done. But it's hard to scale that as you grow. You know, so what basically happens for a lot of us is you're a single leader team. A single leader team is basically like everything runs through you. You kind of become that bottleneck that everything has to run through. You're the quality assurance check. You're the standards check, right? That bottleneck doesn't really bother us so much when we are a solopreneur or when we have maybe one other person working for us. But it also leads to an inability to grow. And there's just not enough of you to go around as things expand. So what I like to recommend to my clients and what I am also doing in my business is something called self-directed teams. I really love self-directed teams. And as I was growing up in the business world, I had this opportunity to work for a gentleman at an ad agency who wrote a whole book on self-directed teams, um, because he was a strong believer in the autonomy that came with it, the ability to make decisions collectively and on your own, and the empowerment that came with this structure. So I'm going to show you guys a visual just because I'm such a visual learner. I want to show you guys this very simple graphic. If I have a screen share. Oh, good. I do have a screen share. Okay. So this is a very simple screen share of the difference between a self-directed team or a single leader team. And a single leader team, as you'll see, has that kind of that bottleneck in the middle with all of those, like it's over here with these kind of um, cogs going out, almost like a bicycle wheel, right? Or a Ferris wheel or something, right? A single leader team. But a self-directed team is over here and it's happening all in one place. Now, imagine how this becomes more powerful because as you're growing, and I'm going to build this with you guys for a minute. Then this is going to be fun. You're going to like this. Okay, so what's going to happen as your business grows is then you're going to have all of these little self-directed teams that are all surrounding each other. So all of a sudden you start to build this bigger infrastructure. And this is what's happening. As I said, we'll talk plenty about my business as an example, but I trained somebody who trained somebody who trained somebody, and then they're all building their own staff and teams. They have the autonomy to make their own decisions within those teams, and they run their own book of business as if it's their own little micro business. Now, the only way that I was able to do this, and it's a little bit the chicken or the egg, but the way I was able to do it is because I had processes and procedures in place that specialized and specifically outlined how to do things the Sunday brunch way, how to do things the Rachel way. Okay, so as we're visualizing these self-directed teams, what were some of the things that were mandatory that I had to build in order for it to grow? Okay, so that's where we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about this because there's some basic fundamentals when you start your company. Then you're like, okay, well, I need to go through the checklist of writing a business plan, or I need to open a bank account, and like I need to set up invoicing. And you're like, okay, is that structure? Is that it? Is that all there is? Definitely not. Those are operational things. But what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about this type of systems in place is, what's your client onboarding look like? Have you taken the time to figure out what a client onboarding checklist is for your clients? So for my clients, because it's marketing, it's very intimate, we need to have a conversation about strategy. We need to have access to login credentials for different, like maybe it's your website or your social media platforms, your email system. Like we have a whole onboarding package of questions and forms that we ask our clients to fill out. I know that I'm going to do it this way. I know that any of the self-directed teams that work at Sunday Brunch are all going to do this the same way because we were all trained to do it in the way that I had established. Now, when I first started, I didn't have a clear process. I kind of had best in class examples from other industries and other agencies I'd worked in, and I polished it and fine tuned it and, kind of got it just right of what was going to work for our clients. So client onboarding is a great system. Employee onboarding is another one. When I onboarded my first employee, it was more like, hey, come work with me. And here's an email address. You're official. And it was like, oh my God. Uh, First of all, liability wise, that is not enough. It's so much more than just their time and giving them an email address, which by the way, you should have a process for having someone sign up with a new email for your company. But we have a whole employee handbook that legally we need to have. We also have sexual harassment training, which is very important. We also have your IRA sign up, your IRA and your insurance sign up and your direct deposit forms and your tax forms, right? Like we have a whole onboarding system. Now, I'm mentioning this today because you may or may not be at that place, but it is absolutely imperative that you have employee onboarding documents. You need to ask us in the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate for those tools. I don't believe that we have on the back end right now an employee onboarding checklist or handbook, but we certainly could. If you guys would like one, we would be happy to make that a part of your membership. Or if you have a draft that you've put together and you would like us to review it and proofread it, be another set of eyes for it. These are the kind of things that you should be asking us and how you should be using us to create these for your business. Even if you're at the stage where you're not ready to onboard a bunch of employees, but it's part of your goals for next year that you're ready to do that, these are the types of steps that you should be taking in advance to have them ready. So, okay, client onboarding docs, employee onboarding docs and processes and procedures. Maybe a weekly status is a part of your structure. Maybe you have a status template that you want everybody to use. Maybe it's a Google form. Maybe it's a Google sheet. Maybe it's a productivity software. Maybe you're using Monday or Slack or one of those other processes. There's no wrong answer of how to do it. The only wrong way is having no plan at all. So client onboarding, employee onboarding, and everything that goes with that. Weekly status, whether it's with your employees or weekly status with your clients. Another really important pillar for this basics, right, is new business. Do you have a process for new business? How are you communicating with the people that are in your new business pipeline? How are you nurturing those relationships? Is it something very simple, like maybe a potential new client gets your monthly newsletter? Or maybe your new business is a little bit more robust. Maybe you have, excuse me, maybe you have a direct mail system going to new business. Maybe you have a weekly follow-up. Maybe you have a different sales cycle. Maybe it's a short sales cycle. How are you nurturing that? But it's something that you can't forget. Your systems are going to change. You need to be adaptable and flexible enough to grow and change as your company grows and changes. So when Sunday Brunch was just me, we had systems and procedures and processes. Then as there were two of us, now as there's 3 or 4, and as the self-directed teams grow, now we have a senior management meeting, as well as a a general, agency-wide meeting. Well, that wouldn't have made sense 4 years ago, right? But it's evolving. And so you have to also sometimes take a step back as the owner, as the leader of the business, and say, hey, we're growing, we're going to have some growing pains. Hey, senior leadership, it's time for us to make some adjustments. We're gonna evolve, and then maybe do a check-in a week later. Hey, I love your feedback. How's this new structure working for you? What pros and cons have you seen? Have we jumped the gun on it? Was it too early? Was it too late? And take feedback and be flexible enough to grow, and remember that the goal of your business is to employ other people. It's not to do all the work yourself. So you want to make sure that the people who are working for you are a part of it. They can co-author these solutions with you. And I love hiring people that are smarter than me. That is absolutely the goal. So I want to hear what they have to say. Just because I have an idea or a vision doesn't mean that they can't make it better. I like to tell them all the time, hey, if it were me, I would, and let's say we have a goal or an objective or a process or something that needs to be implemented. Hey, if it were me, I would do it this way. But if you can come up with a better way, then let's try it that way too. I, as long as it's going to achieve the end goal, then by all means, like, I don't know everything. And I just know that the younger generation that's coming up is sometimes a little bit more savvy than I am, and that's totally okay with me. Like, no ego involved here. So I try to just be adaptable and flexible, but also provide that mentorship and guidance and stewardship, and maturity and seasoning that sometimes is lacking. So between the balance of all the different generations working together, we have continued to find structure and processes and procedures that are working. So now let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these processes that we've kind of touched on here. So dun 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 dun. Oh, before I do that, there's one other important, like, general foundational point that I want to make. I've worked with clients over the years that have no cultures or fear-based cultures, and they're highly process driven, but they're also, um, they don't generate a lot of innovation because people are afraid. So as you're doing this, and if you are inviting your team to help you, make sure that you have a culture that's built on trust, that people feel empowered to say yes when opportunities or challenges arrived. Make sure that they have the support that they're going to need, and that you're positive, um, and that you remove any, like, uncertainty, so that they know that they can, be in a safe place to suggest possible solutions and to try things their way and be open to changing it. And you know it's just that, like, if you're gonna co-author solutions, like, it has to be built on trust, it has to be built on a yes culture. So that takes time too. So every year with our business, we do a retreat in the fall where everybody gets to, like, do team bonding. And like, that's one of the ways that we continue to um to get to know each other and engage. That's not always about work, or not always about the task that has to get done. So just keep that in mind as you're growing too. Okay. Now I want to dive in to some of the processes for client onboarding. And I think some of these, like, processes are pretty universal. But again, remember that, like, your business is going to be unique and special to you based on what service or product you're providing. So just kind of take that with a grain of salt. So for our clients, like, we have, when we're in the new business phase, and we've been hunting a client, and we're going down that process of considering a relationship of working together, we have a proposal contract template that works for us. And so anyone on our team can pick up that proposal template and modify it to the needs and services of that particular, potential engagement. Do you have a proposal template? Do you need a proposal template? Do you need the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate to provide you some options? We also have a master service agreement. If we have a client that's pretty robust in terms of the legalese that they're looking for, then maybe the master service agreement goes with the proposal, and it has a lot more disclaimers and legal language in it. Maybe you have one too. Maybe you need one. I don't know, but you need to ask if you do. And then we have we have set up where we have like, if we're going to be doing a kickoff meeting, we have a strategic homework assignment that we send people with a checklist of things that they can do before the meeting as like homework, and things that we're going to be talking about in the first meeting so that there's no surprises. We also want to know who the key decision makers are, kind of what the swimming lanes are. If there's a lot of people on the side, on the client side, who's in charge of what. So we're asking a lot of those questions up front so that it's not a surprise later. And it's not always an exact science, because sometimes even on the client side, things are going to change and ebb and flow. And sometimes maybe we're working owner to owner, and maybe sometimes then they're growing, and maybe they're going to add a head of marketing who's now going to be our key point of contact. Totally fine. But at least we've already established the fact that those are important pieces of data that we need to collect. Do they have a brand guidelines already in place? Do they have a strategy already in mind, or are we rebuilding that? Those are great questions that you should be asking. I have a client that sells a product, right? They're not in a service business, they're selling a product. So when someone buys their product, they have pre-recorded setup guide videos for how that product is meant to be set up and used upon delivery. That way, instead of fielding a bunch of phone calls or how-to guides, or, like just an FAQ, there's actual setup guide videos that have been offered that those clients are encouraged to watch. So that's another way that could be handled. Or maybe you sell a product that's really simple and doesn't require a setup. I love using examples like my Stanley water bottle. Like, it didn't really need a setup guide, but there's tons of content out there of like, I've seen like people being innovative with how they freeze the ice to be in the middle versus on the sides. Like, there's tips and tricks and, best use practices, right? Or maybe you're selling, like, this is a scrunchy hair tie, right? Like, maybe it's like best hairstyles to use with this scrunchie, right? So there's different ways that you can innovate and continue building those relationships with your client, because once you have a client, you want to keep them, and you want to keep them happy, and you want them to refer you more business. So these processes and procedures, really run the gamut and go full circle. So you've got client onboarding, and then you've got employee onboarding. So employee onboarding, what are some of the structured orientation that you are giving to your clients? Or excuse me, to your employees as they're coming on board, so that they can understand your culture? Are you teaching them about the why behind your business? Are you setting clear roles and expectations? Do they know are they going to have a 90-day review? Are they going to have a 6-month review, an annual review? What are the things you're going to be reviewing them on? You need to tell them in advance. Well, these are the things that we're going to be evaluating your performance on, so that they are like, oh, okay, great. I know I definitely need to perform in these areas. Have you not set those up? If not, ask Rod, ask Jim, ask myself. We can help you develop those types of tools so that you are set up to give a 90-day review, or a 6-month review, or an annual review. Also, like I mentioned earlier, do you have an employee handbook that they're signing? Do you have a process for making sure that their direct deposit is set up, that their tax documents are signed? Do you need to have them sign a form that says that their photograph is allowed to be used on your website or on your social media? Is that covered in the handbook? Do they need to do sexual harassment training? is there, did their email get set up? Are there certain project management expectations that you have for them? So, did they get introduced to the team? Not just what their name is, but did you set up maybe some like time for them to bond with the team so they can get to know the people that they're working with, right? Like there's a whole, did you order business cards? Or did you ask them to approve their business cards? Did you get their phone number right? Right? Like there's all these things that have to happen when you onboard a new employee so that they are set up for success, so that they can be immersed into your culture and be a good representation of you and your business as they're representing you and selling your products and services. So the new client onboarding, employee onboarding, and then let's see, the other one that I was going to talk about, what was the other one? I think it was, oh, processes and procedures for existing clients. So I have, I encourage whenever we onboard a new client for Sunday Brunch, it's a service-based business. When it's new, we do a weekly status call because we're still getting in the flow. If we're writing your social media or we're writing your emails or your blogs, if we need to learn your voice, your tone, what's the learning curve for your product or service. But eventually, maybe it can parcel out to like every other week, or maybe it's once a month. Or maybe it's a really high touch client and we do need to maintain a weekly status call. Okay, great. That's absolutely fine. But, what kind of preparation needs to be done before that status call? Is there an agenda that needs to get sent every week before the call? Do we need to have multiple people collaborate on the agenda so that it's co-authored and that everyone's priority items are outlined? Also, and I think this is a lost art, is there follow-up to that meeting? Is there a conference report or meeting minutes that need to be sent after the meeting? So in the corporate world, every time there was a client meeting, there needed to be a conference report that was sent out within 24 hours. And in the Saatchi and Saatchi world, this was a legally binding document, and it needed to capture everything that was agreed to by the client throughout the meeting. And an email wouldn't have been a legally binding document, but this one, the client needed to review and sign and return it within 24 hours because there were different tasks that then would start happening based on what was approved in those meetings. And we were spending money and spending time and making decisions based on what the client said. So in your line of work, are there things that were agreed to that need to be captured and recapped appropriately in a timely manner? Hang on. I want to make sure that I don't just lose you guys. Can you still, I need a thumbs up that you can all still hear me. Okay, good. All right. My car just, blah. Okay. It like times out after a while. So anyways, okay. So anyways, different size businesses, different products or services and require different processes and procedures and structures in place. So it's really important that you take the time to set those up in advance because once you have them established, you'll be able to grow. You'll also be able to avoid some of the mistakes that could happen. And all you have to remember to be flexible enough to ebb and flow as the things change. Also, as technology changes, our systems continue to change too. If I had said 5 years ago, oh, are you using Slack or Monday? You guys all would have scratched your head and been like, what the hell is that? Never heard of that. Or maybe 10 years ago, but you get the gist, right? It's going to change. So make sure that, so I keep a list, by the way, of all the different processes and procedures, and I reevaluate them yearly to make sure that they are still being used, because sometimes it's like you kind of forget and you're like, oh, I onboarded somebody and I forgot to mention this. Like you gotta try to like eliminate those those oops moments, because you really need to hold yourself accountable to them so that everybody else on your team will also be held accountable to them too. So as you're growing, as you're scaling, um, I'll tell you, you know, the more consistent you can be, the more that people can depend on you to follow through and to lean into these processes and procedures. It's going to help you deliver things that are on time, that are on budget, that meet expectations, exceed expectations. It's going to make you more efficient. It's going to make sure you don't leave more money on the table. So it's going to make you more profitable in the long run. So I think, the McDonald's and the Amazons and the Toyotas or Apples or Zappos of the world, like they've all gone through these learning curves, and these growth pains that we're going to go through too. So, just always make sure that you're kind of checking in with yourself and that you are standardizing your operational processes as much as you can, but continuing to innovate as well along the journey. So that's kind of my standpoint on the topic for today. But I really want you guys to ask me some questions, because I feel like I've mentioned some things today that are systems that you guys may or may not have been doing, that you may or may not need us to help guide you on. And I would really like to walk away from this call today with a list of different um different systems that you need. And I want to continue building the back end of Yes so that it's more valuable to you. So um Wayne and Heidi and Alex, like, what's on your wish list for processes that that maybe you're currently using that you would like us to um audit and review and take a look at, give you feedback on? Or what are some systems that you think, oh crap, Rachel just mentioned something that I need that. So if you guys could take turns, I would really like to collaborate with you on that. Alex, why don't you go first?
Right now, I haven't reached that side yet. Kind of like what you were talking about a little while ago. That just the company right now, it's just myself, and we're still kind of finding our niche. So we haven't gotten to the point of, say, proposals, and HR and things of that nature. So, but it's definitely, this is something that's shed some light on some things and different ideas on what to do when I get there.
Good, good. You are going to notice as you continue to grow that I think you'll get retargeted, like through social media or other providers who like send you ads like, oh, use us for bookkeeping, use us for payroll, right? Like you get all these like fly by night companies that are out there that are like, we're the cheapest or we're the fastest, right? But whenever you get those ads, ask us, because a lot of the times we'll be able to tell you, oh, we've tried them, or we know somebody who has, or this is who's best in class. This is who you should talk to first. Because I'll give you an example. When I was young in my business world, I was using a company for payroll that I will not tell you who, and really I was payrolling myself and one other person. And then I had to end up doing this monthly reporting to the state and to the federal government. And it took me like 2 days to do this monthly reporting. And I was like pulling my hair out. And then I switched to a different payroll provider who does it for me. And I only ended up paying like an extra $25 to use the other person or the other company. And I was like, well, this is totally worth it. My time is more valuable than $25. And I could do more billing and more work with that time that it freed up. So I, had to like kind of step in that landmine a little bit. And I think part of what we've always talked about in this group is we can hopefully save you guys from those growing pains.
Yeah, I've been through some of it. Like I was talking with Jim before, is I came from the government contracting realm and GSA, and had to ran that division of a company before this. So putting in processes that didn't exist and having to create them and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a process. It's a big learning curve. Um, so for good or bad, I guess I'm just not at that point yet. I'm trying to keep that GSA stuff out of my mind. But yeah, no, it's definitely important.
Wayne, how you doing? I'm gonna put you in the hot seat.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? I just ran to my truck real quick, out of the wind. Um, yeah, anyways, I really like what you're saying, and I really so with my going with my tree business on this one, I feel what I did wrong was everything that you talked about, I didn't do. When I started my business, I was by myself. I didn't have any structure. I just, I was very open to change. That helped, because I just went for it. But then I started getting bigger, and I started gaining a lot more clients, and then I tried to start hiring out, and I didn't have any real structure. It was, yeah, my client or my employees were here, come ride in the truck with me. Let me show you how I do it. This is how I think you should do it. Kind of just, the hands-on experience of being next to me and doing it my way. Um, but then I feel that there wasn't enough structure in that process. So then I kept going through, um, an employee, and he would work with me for 4, 6 months, 8 months. He'd move on, go do something else. Then I'd have to look for another young kid, and then I think another thing I was worried about too was financially was I had to find that that person that would work cheaper, work for $10 an hour, $8 an hour, and then I did it the totally wrong way. I paid cash. We didn't do any sort of anything as far as like 401ks or taxes. It was just here at the end of the day. Here's your $100. And I think, and then so now I'm at the point in my business where I'm the main man. I'm the main dog. I'm the only dog. So kind of like Alex was saying. So I feel that in in this call tonight is really kind of proof in the pudding that I did it. I don't know if to say I did it wrong, um, but I feel like if I would have started with structure and knowing, hey, as I start getting more clients, how am I going to train these guys? How am I going to have a set plan of like, this is what we do. We show up, we make sure the dogs don't get out. We make sure, a structure to every pool is basically the same. No pool is the same. Um, but if the structure is the same, I feel like I could have been in a little bit different spot right now. I'm happy where I'm at right now with it. But yeah, there was a lot that I didn't do. And so I kind of need to backtrack a little bit and see, because right now I'm kind of in the process of I don't really want more clients, but I also don't want more clients because I don't know how to handle more clients, basically. Um, so that part really, I really need to work on that. So I'm happy where I'm at right now with what I got going on, the amount of work that I have. I picked up a couple little side jobs this week. I mean, you're in California, we've had some pretty gnarly fires over here.
Yeah.
Um, it's directly in my neighborhood. We got evacuated. A lot of my clients got evacuated. Um, today I went back to some of our properties and some of my pools, and they're just covered in ash. Um, so I am gonna have some extra work lined up over the next couple weeks. But right now it's me, and my kids because we're out of school. So my kids worked with me all day today. They're out running around right now. So, but
That's
yeah, um, I just, I see where you come from, and I've never been like super savvy on running the book, that kind of deal. So I feel like that's definitely a growing spot that I need to grow in. Um, and just what you said really made sense to me because I didn't do that and I'm still currently not. You know, I'm pretty low key. I just kind of go with the flow, get paid. You know, there's no real like, you know, I have my business license and I have QuickBooks to do my billing, and I do all my billing myself. But I don't have really any other support as far as that goes. And I feel like if I was structured better, maybe I would want to start gaining clients again.
One of
And
one
we-
of the one of the other things that I think you're going to need, and a lot of people are going to need, is not just the onboarding, but also the termination docs. How do you write somebody up that's like, so you're not going to end up getting sued if you do have to let them go, right? So there's a lot of templates, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, we learned this a long time ago. They do not teach entrepreneurship in school, which is why we are developing the curriculum for that. But honestly, you guys, I mean, I'm going to show you, because you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to show you some things. Like, this is the Sunday Brunch employee handbook for the year. Now, I'm not going to take you through all 27 pages, but I'll just show you the table of contents. Like, these are just, there's what, almost 3 pages of table of contents for the handbook. Okay. So, I mean, these are things that I want every employee to sign off on, that they agree to these standards of excellence and processes and procedures. Okay. So there's that. But like, let me also share with you, I'm going to share my screen a couple more times here. Because you may not have even thought that you guys need this stuff, but at some point you might be ready for it. So I'm going to share I think I'm just going to share my whole screen, because it's enough. Okay. This is the Sunday Brunch effective coaching tips. Like how do you effectively coach someone? So before I'm going to put a manager in charge of giving a review for anyone, I want to coach them on how to be a good coach. So that's one. Here's another one. Performance review checklist. So not just do I want my employees to know what they're going to be evaluated on, I want the managers to have a guide for what, like, that they've gone through all the things. Did they advise the employee the review is going to be due? Did they provide them with a copy of the review form, right? Are we getting 360-degree feedback from the manager and from the employee and from any of the coworkers? Are we asking the employee to rate his or her own performance? Are we providing a deadline? Are we setting a time? Like, there are rules. Like, then we have a whole template of how we're rating it. There's a performance review, like coach supervisor procedural checklist that also goes with this. And you guys might be like, Rachel, you're making this more complicated, but I trust me, it's not. Like, it's really important. Does my manager need a script? Like, it doesn't have to be verbatim, but I at least need to guide them and teach them, because that's part of the training that they're getting. So I'm going to stop sharing. But there's a lot of these sort of documents that when you guys are growing, when you are making those changes in your business, ask us, is there a form for this? Is there a template? Can you help me? Or can you look at this? Because you can't just always like throw it in ChatGPT and be like, hey, is this good? So use us as a resource. And Heidi, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. I know we have 10 minutes left, but I want to hear from you too, if you are in a space to share. Maybe she's not. Okay. Oh, Rod's hand is up. Yes, go for
Yeah.
Rod.
I'll go. And unless Heidi jumps on here, and that's fine too. A couple of things. Wayne and Alex both. I understand being a solopreneur. This is cool. And when you get the employees and when you grow, it can be problematic, and it's so comfortable to stay in a comfortable spot, right? I understand. Well, I'm comfortable. Everything's groovy. Why would I want to grow? Why would I want the hassle of all that stuff? I would like to challenge both of you, because even if it's just you and your business, you can still have systems, and those systems can be as much as here's my weekly schedule, and I'm going to break it out by day, and make sure you adhere to it. Hold yourself to your own system. So create a system for yourself that you have to adhere to first, and then extrapolate this. And I'll use Alex for just an example here. If you're out looking for, sponsors, what's your checklist when you approach a sponsor? Who's on that list? Do you have six potentials you're going to call in a week and do that every week for 6 months? And then what's your follow-up with them? How are you going to approach them? You need systems for that. What's the follow-up going to be? Is it going to be a phone call? Is it going to be in person? How are you going to do it? And Wayne, even with your pool stuff, I would say, what are you doing now that you don't like to do that you'd like to streamline? We all have those processes, right? But then I'm going to challenge you, especially Wayne. What would it look like? Extrapolate your business plan and say, what would it look like if I hired 3 employees? And how many more clients would I have to get to make X amount more dollars? Back your way into a problem. I'm asking you to do a math problem. Okay. If you had 2 more employees and how many more clients could you get? How much of that would boost your bottom line after payroll, taxes, and everything else? If you ever decided to expand, or if you took on a partner that wanted to expand, you should know what that looks like. Dream big. You don't have to do anything with it, but give yourself the exercise to say, you know what? If I had 3 employees, 4 employees, 10 employees, and I took this thing out to the next county and the next county and the next state, what would that look like? Wayne's Pool Services, national, right? Just see what it would look like, because the systems you set up for yourself are the ones that are going to help you standardize and innovate. And Rachel, you said those 2 terms together, which is a paradox: standardize and innovate, right? But that's what we do. You get things that work for you, and then you innovate from there and grow. So don't just be satisfied. I guess I'm pushing you tonight. Don't just be satisfied, even if you just put it on paper as an exercise. And the other thing, Rachel, you said this: be consistent. And consistency is going to get you where you need to go. But in that consistency, here's another paradox: be unpredictable. Be willing to do something different that other people aren't doing. Whether that's a who knows what, give them, a brush cutting while you're doing the pool. We've talked about that before, Wayne, but, be unpredictable. Don't be like everybody else. I think it was McKay in his book, Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive. He was always innovating, always innovating. He was using what other people did, but then he would innovate. So be consistent, but give yourself room to really play around and do that. And I'm telling you, you will not be sorry. 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, if you guys both look at this and say, what am I doing, and what systems could I build, and how could I make those better? You will outperform everyone else that's in your field, and you'll feel better about it. Anyway, great talk, Rachel. I love the systems. I've worked, from the military, which is probably like TSA, right? Being in the big government space, I get it. I understand how all those systems work. I understand big business. I've worked for Honda. I've worked for Subaru. They all do things differently, but they all do things the same. It's where they that makes them better.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I do consult for the state of California Small Business Association, and I gotta tell you, there is such a thing as too much structure. It is insane the amount of process and procedure that has to get done. It's almost like the opposite of productive, because I find myself like I can spend 8 hours just inputting my time and my notes of spending time talking to a client or trying to put in my hours and like keep track of it. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. So I feel like, the pendulum can swing too far one way or the other. But I feel like as I spend most of my time focused on processes and procedures that are going to be best for my clients, and B, protect my business for liability from employees or from like anything that could go wrong. So it's like there's that fine line. on those things. So, it, you know, we were building a website for, a company recently, and there's certain things when you build a website, right, that like you want to do, but like you forget that there's processes and procedures for the like the minute details. Like, do you have a privacy policy? Is it ADA compliant? Right? Like there's these little boxes to check, like with every little thing that you're doing. So if you take the time to write them down, it's going to save you from having to retrain and reteach. I mean, this could be with the pool service, or this could be with the lawn, or this could be with whatever industry you're doing. You're like, oh, like, don't forget to always, you know, refill this or check that, or, you know, like all those things add up. And if you find yourself repeating them all the time, then maybe like record some videos so that you can just like have videos that people have to watch. Either way, I don't know, just trying to innovate. Sure, go ahead. Alex, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. Didn't want to step on somebody. No, I wanted to go a little bit into depth and give kind of another set of eyes to what you were just talking about, being with the small business thing. I'm actually fighting uphill against the same type of issue of with the GSA, doing it for 12 plus years, looking at such a horribly broken process programs that, you know, I essentially kind of made a career out of, but I just couldn't stand it because you could see how broken it all was. And I have, you know, starting my company, there have been some small processes from when I was doing quoting and things like that that I have moved over into the new company. You know, my uh, just quote procedures, for example, you know, each quote number is based on the month, date, and year. So today it would be 9/16/2024, and then the person's last name. So I know instantaneously what day I did that quote, who it was to, and it gives you two ways of searching for that quote. That's something I learned with the GSA. But everything else, I've been trying to give myself a little bit more free reign and not having to put as many things in place because I saw how much you could trip over them. So I'm trying to find that general consensus, like what you were just talking about a little bit ago, and Rod too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everyone, I think we have reached the end of our time together for today. But I've really enjoyed this. I do love our weekly group coaching calls. If following this, there are things that you want to discuss or templates that you need, don't hesitate to reach out, and this recording will be made available in the next couple days for anybody who wants to watch it. In the meantime, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rachel. Great
Thanks.
job.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.